Welcome back, my awesome people. Today, I am honored to be here with Zak Ali, the general manager of Finder.com. Now, this is a financial website that compares different products and tools, financial tools, from a broad spectrum of other services. So this is a very unique site. Zak has an incredible journey, and we're going to be talking a lot about marketing, SEO, AI, and how is that affecting our own businesses, and how is that affecting the global economics as a whole. So, audience members, please stay tuned to the end because this is going to be amazing. So, Zak, how are you doing today?
Good, good. How are you? Thank you for having me on your channel.
No, thank you for coming on. It's a busy time for everybody, especially now that it's summer. People are traveling and enjoying the outdoors. So, thank you for being here with me today. We are very excited to learning more about yourself, Finder, and also just the marketing world in itself. Because since COVID, a lot of things have changed, especially when it comes to digital world. And we're ready to dive right in. So let me just get right into it, Zak. So Zak, tell us about yourself. How did you get into Finder.com? Because it is a really cool website, and also the world of marketing and SEO.
So, I grew up in right outside of DC, and in my early 20s, I had started a news company with my best friend growing up, and through that time, it's right as Trump got elected, so there was no shortage of news, and I kind of got my bearings and working with digital media and learning a little bit about SEO and about paid marketing, etc. Um, Doing well on social as well, growing a following, and I don't know, just throughout that time, I sort of just fell in love with the game. Digital marketing is so fun. It allows you to scratch sort of both sides of your brain, right? It lets you be technical while at the same time being creative. And so as time went on, I sort of got tired of or always talking about the same person and how they were making news. And so I think it was in 2018, I moved to New York, and I saw a job listing for a company called Finder that talked about financial comparison. It felt like a good fit for me. So I just LinkedIn messaged one of the founders, and it's like, hey, I want to work for you. They gave me a job, and then 6 years later, I'm the general manager for the U.S. branch. So it's been a wild ride.
That is actually a wild ride because just applying to a position and then getting it, and now pretty much controlling the whole US network. That is a big deal. And so can you tell us more about what does Finder do exactly? How does what differentiates it from other financial digital platforms?
So Finder's a financial comparison site, as we said. We are just a group of people that really, really probably are way too into finance. So it started in Australia in around 2009 or 2008. And it started as a credit card website. And from there, it grew into personal loans, into mortgages. It went from Australia to the US, to the UK, to Canada. So it became this sort of global phenomenon that I don't know. We were sort of breaking through in the affiliate space as the people that you could trust to connect you with the products that served your needs. And so, we have our experts, our in-house experts that are always writing content that tries to sort of relate financial concepts in a way that doesn't feel stuffy and that feels relatable and conversational. We try to give you the real advice, and I think it's interesting in this age of AI. Generic advice is not hard to find, right? You type anything into Google or ChatGPT, you'll always get some generic advice if your prompt is a generic prompt. But Finder always gives you the meat. We really break into it, and we give you the balanced perspective. We tell you what's working, what isn't working, when it's a good idea, when it's not a good idea to take out, like a mortgage or a loan, or what bank account has the highest APY at any given moment. So, yeah, I think Finder is just one of those. It's one of the websites I think that are really trying to do their best, has a good mission, to want to help people make better decisions. And we have a lot of interesting sort of things coming up. We're partnering with a lot more financial institutions to give better deals, to give rewards, bonuses that you can't find anywhere else on the internet. And so, yeah, it's a really cool company.
I think that is absolutely amazing because, especially in these times where finances, unemployment, people are not sure, they're confused what to do with their finances, having it all in one spot where you can pretty much take care of your financial needs or finding services to take care of your financial needs, I think that is absolutely critical at this point because I was actually going to ask this question down the line, but I can just ask it now. With AI now revolutionizing pretty much everything, we have a lot of real news, fake news. We can't, deep fakes. We're not able to determine, is this reality or is this a deep fake or something AI created. So with a platform like yours, individuals do not need to maybe go to a scam site or a hacking site, right? Where they can just go to Finders. Everything is legit. Everything is organized in a way where it's easy for the user as well. So back to that question, what do you think about AI? And it has its hands in everything. Where do you think it's going to be like in the future?
I think it's going to be omnipresent. I think AI is a great enabler. I think it has its cons, which I'm sure we'll speak to at some point during this interview. But I do think AI is a massively important tool. I think it's going to speed up the way we work, and I think it's going to create space and time to do even greater, deeper work. AI can, and I'm not sure if you've been following some of the stories around automation through tools like N8N or Zapier or Make, but a lot of these tools are allowing you to automate sort of the busy work, the stuff that you don't necessarily think about. Like I'm sure as a YouTuber, uploading into YouTube and thinking of the hashtags and the tags you want to use and
Yep.
all of that sort of boilerplate part of the process.
The tedious
AI is
parts.
enabling. Exactly. And so it's doing a good job of sort of getting rid of the tedious parts of content creation. And so, but no, I think it's transformative. But I will say there is still a lot of merit to the human component of things. I think there's a reason people add Reddit to the end of all of their searches, right? They want to hear real human experiences. And Finder does its best to sort of give you that experience. And if we don't have it personally, internally at the company, we go out and find someone that does have that experience and get quotes from them and get their expertise so that the reader, our users, always can walk away knowing that they've gotten the best information possible.
Very well said. And that's exactly what we need, especially now with so much misinformation, disinformation. I don't even know. Sometimes you're even reading information; it could just be totally made up. So now, just taking a step back, what do you think some of the current challenges and opportunities are in the finance world? Whether it's investment, stocks, crypto, what are some of the challenges and opportunities?
So I think one of the challenges is that there's a lot of noise. If you go on social media, chances are, especially X, or chances are you're going to see a lot of crypto related information out there. And there is no such thing as a get rich quick scheme. Even the folks who've become crypto millionaires, it took a few years for crypto to catch up to the point where it would actually make them millionaires. So I want to just caution folks that you can't really believe everything you see online. And I think marketers are great at identifying this stuff, but they're also great at selling it. I mean, I'm sure, again, you're in the YouTube world. You've seen people pitching faceless YouTube channels probably all day, every day, and how it's this great money making scheme. And a lot of that stuff doesn't pan out for folks. There's always some missing information that's not being said. It's a way to funnel you into a course, or it's a way to funnel you into a newsletter or something like that. And the thing they've sold you doesn't actually necessarily deliver on what the hook was in the first place. So I think finance is exactly the same. I think there is always going to be someone who with a motive. And I think it's important to be cautious of that motive and be aware of that motive. And sometimes that motive is good and it's something you agree with, right? So companies like SoFi are releasing access to private markets, and they're pitching it. They're doing press releases about how now you can get sort of exposure to OpenAI or Anthropic through some of their private equity funds that are available. Which that sounds like a great idea, and they're very good at outlining the risk once you're on the platform. Or you go into Robinhood. Recently, they had they went global with crypto, and they've offered like these tokens in Europe that give you exposure to some of these big companies. And so there's a lot of innovation happening as well. But I would say Slow and steady usually wins the race. And maybe if slow is not your vibe, at least steady.
Exactly. It's as you said, which is said very well. Too much noise in the background in the finance world, especially with AI. Especially now, I'm hearing they're using AI bots to actually start doing stock picks and creating ETFs and creating these strategies. I mean, in face value, it looks really really cool, and projected growth looks amazing, but it may not always pan out. What would you say is the most underrated way that marketers should be using AI, but they're not?
So marketers, I'd say behind engineers, probably have taken to AI the most in terms of like industry jobs. One way I would say for marketers, sometimes there's a little bit of resistance, and I think you see a lot of resistance on the actual content creation side of things. And I think there's a way to play in the middle. So I think writers are very apprehensive about AI because they see their craft as being minimized to something that you can just type into a computer and get a response back. But I would say to the great copywriters out there that you can use AI to show you what you don't like, right? How can you sound less like AI? When ChatGPT first came out, when I was using it back in 2023, late 2022, I was using it because I'm so much better at seeing copy that I don't like. And I would get ChatGPT to generate me like 10 subject lines for a newsletter. And I'd be like, now I know exactly what I want because I saw 10 options that I didn't want. And so there are so many creative ways to use AI to your advantage. And I think it shouldn't be necessarily seen as this big monster coming to take something from you. I think, there's a famous quote going around that someone who AI won't take your job, someone who knows how to use AI will. And I definitely think there's a little bit of truth to that. I think it's going to be as common as using Google Sheets or Excel in the next 2 or 3 years.
And I 100% agree with that. It's like they always say, right? Robots are going to take over. They're going to take over, but then there's going to be that human element that actually needs to take care of the robot. So yeah, it might take some jobs. Obviously, to admit it will, but I don't think it will take as many jobs as they continue to claim. So like for example yourself, what are some AI tools that you probably use in your day-to-day workflow, whether it's for scheduling, whether it's planning? Is there any AI apps or tools that you're currently using?
Yes, but first I want to speak to the jobs thing. We actually had the U.S. just had their jobs report come out yesterday. So depending on when this goes live, it was yesterday from when we were speaking. But the tech sector added 90,000 jobs in June, and 100 AI and machine learning jobs saw 153% year-over-year increase. So it is going to take jobs, but it's creating jobs as well. So I do think that's the side of the narrative that doesn't get spoken about as much. But I will say it
That's
is
a very
creating
good
more
point. Very good
yeah.
point. And I think the people who are going to lose their jobs, it's not that they're losing their job, it's more of the sector is declining and cannot keep up with AI. So those individuals would have to, go back to school or maybe go back to training or find a different sector that is in the tech field, because tech is going to be like healthcare, right? Like you can never get rid of a doctor or a nurse, and the same time you're never going to get rid of an engineer or a programmer. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just the entry level. The bar is going to be raised a bit, right? You don't necessarily need the entry level JS or React, coder anymore. They can come in at a higher level doing, it's almost like they become the manager for the AI agents writing their code. So we're going to see the industry change quite significantly, but I also think we're going to see a lot of new small businesses. I actually think the liberal arts majors of the world, the idea people, are going to flourish during this time because creativity, when you have creativity and then you have this tool that can build anything you want, that's a match made in heaven. Again, there are still cons and drawbacks to AI, especially as it relates to the concerns around energy and cost. But I think humans have a sort of good track record of figuring things out as we move forward. Personally, what tools do I use? I started with ChatGPT, and so I feel like I've been pretty loyal to OpenAI as the years go by. But I have dabbled in Claude, I've also used a little bit of Cursor in my spare time when I can get some time to work on some of these coding projects I do to just sort of stay, keep it fresh of mind so I don't come out of practice. But then I've also played around with things like Suno, which is like a music creation AI tool. And that's really cool. And I've used sort of the image generation. I remember when Midjourney just first came out, I was using that. And so I'm really embracing this new technology because I feel like it's going to be one of those things that if you're in on the ground floor and you can see how it evolves, you're going to have a leg up.
And it's going to be easier for the learning curve. It's like, for example, our parents or grandparents, when the internet first came out, it was probably the first time they've ever used a keyboard. Whereas the new generation, they're kind of born with a keyboard. So it's that learning curve. So when you start early, you're at the grassroots level and you work your way up, you definitely do have a leg up. And just to a point that you mentioned earlier, especially with the YouTube automation about the faceless videos, how do you balance that? Do you think that in the future, maybe not even in the future, is it a positive to have faceless content where it's just AI, beautiful scenery, or do you think that the human element should be incorporated, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in social media, or whatever the case is?
So I think there's a home for everything, right? I think there are so many people in the U.S. right now that have dupes of famous art painting, right? It's not the real thing, but it's a dupe, and it makes you feel like you have a piece of culture in your house. I often go back to, and this might date me a little bit, the movie Good Will Hunting. I'm not sure if you've seen Good Will Hunting.
Definitely a
Yeah, I
great
mean,
movie.
it's so there's a part where Robin Williams and Matt Damon are on the bench, and it was after like a sort of contentious argument they had, and um, Robin Williams' character is just like, you know what, you might be able to, tell me all about Michelangelo, but you haven't sat in the Sistine Chapel and looked up or taken in the air. So there will the human component of it, the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into a project will always be cherished more. I think it's unavoidable, but I don't mean that will necessarily diminish AI created work. I think AI there's a lot of AI generated stuff I see on TikTok and Reels that makes me laugh. That's real. Those are real laughs, right? So it does provide value, but it's not the same as me going to the Comedy Cellar after work and hearing it straight from a stand-up comedian. So I do think there's a home for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a good point about the Good Will Hunting example because it's just like when we all went to university. We can read and read and read and finish the textbooks, but until we're actually in the field working on it, it's two different things. You can have the knowledge, but not the experience of it,
Yes.
which I think is I think AI and humans will have a great relationship and partnership. I think that would be the best balance. And so, what do you think are the top three most SEO mistakes that brands make or even individuals make? Because I know SEO has to do everything with the algorithms, how you're found, and so on. What are some of the biggest mistakes that individuals or even brands make?
I think one of the biggest mistakes is writing for Google. I think you need to remember that there's someone else on the other end of the article that you're writing, someone a real human. And I think a lot of times people get caught up in the hacks and the technical SEO and the FAQ schema, adding that, which is all important stuff. But if your content looks dry and it feels dry and it's not memorable, then you will always just be that one site that you clicked on that one time. There's no brand building happening. But if I come to a website and I'm like, whoa, I'm blown away. They had a tool for me. They had a calculator. They had the copy resonated. It was funny. It made me laugh at points. They had really good imagery. They provided the screenshots, and it really felt like the writer knew exactly what I wanted. Like they had done their customer profiling work. I think that's what we need to lean more into, is being a lot more user centric, and we'll have a better internet. I mean, for a lot of folks, Google is the internet, and they actually don't remember the old times when people were on like trolling forum sites, like and watching, hearing the after people would watch like Survivor or Big Brother or Star Trek forums and Star Wars forums, like that old school internet where people would just genuinely blog typos, misuse of periods and commas, and that for me. That's my nostalgic sort of. I'm sort of nostalgic for that period because it was raw and it was real. And Reddit gives you a little bit of that, but I think we're going to shift back to that in a way where AI sort of gives you the very well structured and framed content that's like just definitions. And what's going to separate the sites that do well is going to be the ones who really speak to the user and leave an impression that they can't find anywhere else, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah, that was a great point because I've had many experiences where I go to a website, it was not user friendly. There was no utility of the website. It was just a screen with words on it. You know, you just press backspace and you try to find a website that's a little bit more user friendly and has all the tools that you need. What would you say is the most unconventional marketing tactic that you used, or maybe know someone that, or someone that has used, that actually worked? So something just off the beaten path and gave it a shot and it worked.
So I'm not sure if it works, but there is this one advertiser on TikTok that is, there's no one on the other end of like it's of the microphone, but they look like they're on a podcast and they have like the red curtains behind them, so they look like specifically they're on the Joe Rogan podcast and they're using it to talk up some supplement or something they're selling, but they framed it in such a way that's like, okay, that's kind of like bad, but it's also like really creative and unique. And I don't know, I also am fascinated by sort of the way brands have approached social media and their understanding of it. I'm not sure if you've been on like the Nutter Butter TikTok account before, or like Sour Patch Kids, but that's some real, nightmare Willy Wonka looking stuff. They understand that social media is there to leave an impression and to make people laugh or just leave a mark. And so marketers are always we're parasites, but we're so creative, and I think like there's a lot of good that can come out of it, that I've seen coming out of this like sort of weird moment we're in, where like everything is meta, and even like TikTok, the internet's just one big inside joke right now. It's a weird spot, but it's kind of cool and it's kind of funny.
It's its own ecosystem of just random things. You know, you have your videos of brands just doing the most random things just to make it a memorable moment. And I think us as viewers, we kind of appreciate that. We're like, oh, okay, I didn't even know they were trying to sell marshmallows, but that was a really cool video.
Yeah.
So to stay on that topic, what should companies and entrepreneurs do to keep up in such a fast-paced digital environment? I know COVID, you had the traditional brick and mortar stores that couldn't keep up with digital transition. Unfortunately, many of them failed. But now that we're not doing brick and mortar anymore, we're kind of set in the digital world. How can we always keep up and stay ahead of others?
So I think one of the really important things, and especially for SEOs, is we are now in the age of multi-platform. So you can't just be a text site, you can't just be a YouTube channel, you can't just be a newsletter. You have to sort of be a little bit of everything. You have to have some sort of audience ownership. So if your audience is totally owned by algorithms, like it is in the case of organic search or TikTok or Reels, YouTube actually does have subscribers. There's a little bit more ownership there. But if you ever fall out of favor and you're not on the homepage recommendations anymore, or next up video recommendation, that's a sizable chunk of your audience taken away as well. And so I do think being multi-platform and then having some way to funnel your audience into a community of some sort or a newsletter where you have that direct one-to-one relationship is going to be ever important. And it should have been from the start. But there was such a sort of spigot of free traffic out there that it was like, why do all the extra stuff? But it's caught up with us. Yeah.
Yeah, because if we don't keep up, I mean, the next wave of autonomous anything, right? You can have a autonomous. I mean, Tesla's already doing it with the autonomous robots who are going to be kind of like your assistants, which I'm not really fully convinced I will ever get one just yet. It might go rogue.
Right.
I've seen Minority Report. Um, so now back to yourself. Who are some of the thinkers, mentors, creators that maybe shaped your career or shaped your idea of AI? So who did you kind of look up to, whether it was when you were younger or even currently?
So I'm a big, it's cliche, but I really do like Steve Jobs. He was someone that I looked up to a lot, and reading his biography, I remember, Apple events were like Christmas for me, and it was I still remember where I was the day he passed, and knowing that, oh man, this person who really genuinely cares about the end user. He has his faults as all humans do, but he was gone, and that attention to detail. I knew we weren't going to get someone like him for a while. He's a sort of a generational figure, and Barack Obama is another one. I actually have a sort of a picture of him on my wall there from when he's young, and I think he's another one that I find to be really fascinating. Someone who's really changed the game of politics, and someone who's so eloquent and ordinary by many standards, an ordinary person who was able to rise to the heights he was able to rise to, and change really campaign. I mean, in today's age, his campaigns would look boring and not at all flashy, based on what we have today. But back then, he really, it was exciting to see someone like that, or another generational talent. And then, I think Hamilton, I have his biography back there somewhere that I read, and sort of seeing how, again, another ordinary figure who sort of rose to prominence just through his own intellect. I think I have a lot of respect. Maya Angelou, another big one for me, who's, again, I really like people who are ordinary, and who come, from their ordinary background. They don't come from money. They don't come from particularly any they don't have a leg
Elite
up
status or anything.
Exactly. And in many ways probably have a disadvantage. But through their own brain and through their own sort of ingenuity, they rise to become these like people that we admire and love. And I think, I think those are the people that I would say have the biggest impact on me.
That is absolutely amazing. They are all revolutionary, especially I would say Steve Jobs, once in a generation, once in a lifetime type of individual. He took something that we thought was going to be stuck on a wall forever, and he made it cordless, and he made it even, pretty and sexy. And that's the beautiful part. So yeah, rest in power for him. So what would you say is one failure or setback that taught you a lesson that you still carry today? Because I'm sure in the world of programming, AI, marketing, there could be tons of issues. Things can always happen. So what was one that kind of stood out and you carry with yourself?
Oh, I mean, failure is the greatest teacher. And the news company that I started with my co-founder, it failed, right? It failed many times. We've done a few pivots and tried to make it work a few different ways. And sort of, I think one of the best learnings from failure is that you're not made of glass, and that you can be at your lowest low, and from that low sort of find a way to come out of it and be, stronger. And learning is a win. And I think not enough people appreciate that it is your failures. Those are the moments that you are going to think about when you are successful, about, man, I'm so happy that happened, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have learned this thing that allowed me to go to this next thing, and then essentially connect all the dots. But yeah, I don't know. I've failed in many ways. I failed by not thinking about distribution to enough. I've launched several products on the App Store, and it's great when you have this great product, but then you don't think about distribution. And so you've built something, you spend all that time and money, and then no one comes to it, right? And no one finds it. And so I've learned that just how important it is to do a few different work streams in tandem, right? To think of in systems, and to think of the whole sort of picture before you launch something, because you don't know how that might affect this other thing, and it actually leads to sort of a exponential decline rather than exponential growth. And yeah, I don't know. I think I have too many. How much time do you have for me to go over all?
No, I think you made a good point about the failures, because a lot of people, they're so against failing. They think that once you fail, that's it, give up, don't give it a shot anymore. But even for myself, failure was the best medicine, I would say, for success, because when you post that first video, You might get 5 views. Then you post a second video, there's 8 views. You're like, wow, 3 more people. But then over time, you start realizing that as long as you don't stop, you just keep going. And I think with your first business as well, the news business, that was, a nice eye opener, gave you some experience to continue moving forward and doing better than the last time. But I think failure really is the best medicine for success. So now I have to ask cryptocurrency. So 10 years ago, no institutions wanted to touch crypto because they were not sure, they didn't know what was going on. Many of them just thought it was a trend. Now, however, since I would say the past 2 years, especially with the Bitcoin spot ETF and BlackRock being involved in the Ethereum ETFs, what do you think about cryptocurrency as a whole, and what do you think of it coming up in the future?
So I think cryptocurrency has really been legitimized in the past few years. I think it went from this thing that sort of, kind of a known secret that it's really used to just buy illicit goods, right? It's fake internet money that you can use to sort of purchase things that you don't want to put your credit card to. And I watched it evolve from that in like 2011 or 2012 up until basically like 2017, where it really started to gain some traction. It wasn't such a hobbyist currency anymore, I guess, commodity. And I do see how it's sort of taken on a life of its own, and it's legitimate because we think it's legitimate. And I've seen how some communities find it as like the great equalizer. I have a friend who's gone like trips to Africa and stuff like that, where there's really sort of tumultuous sort of governments, and they, instead of having putting their wealth into their home currency, they're putting it in Bitcoin and crypto because it feels like a safer haven for them for preserving it. And so and then I also feel like there are grifts. Like I do think there are aspects of crypto that give it a bad name, that undermine the sort of purpose of a decentralized currency, and make it feel almost like buying like internet, like the sort of like pay to play gems you would buy on like an internet mobile game, right? But I don't know. I think crypto is a fascinating thing. It's definitely here to stay. I think the biggest threat to crypto is not legislation or regulation. I think it's quantum computing, which, if that sort of has a breakthrough and it can start breaking sort of the codes, the cryptology or whatever, that'll bring it down. But I think, save quantum computing, crypto is, we'll be talking about crypto 5 years from now.
Thank you for mentioning the quantum, because that was going to be my follow-up question. Now that we have quantum technology and quantum chips, a lot of people are saying there's a good chance it can break the blockchain, and I think that will be devastating for the crypto community and just the decentralized finance world. Can you tell us more about what you think about that, quantum and blockchain? Do you think they can work together, or do you think they're going to be, bitter enemies that are, one is trying to keep the security high, the other one is trying to break into it?
Well, since no one owns crypto, as far as we know, I don't know how they can work together, because who's going to spearhead the sort of work to make it bulletproof, or quantum proof, I should say. I think it's a serious risk, and I think maybe there's a way to create a quantum blockchain that's unbreakable. I don't know, and I'm just using words at this point. But I do think it's a serious thing to think about. It's like, one day oil could just dry up, and all you lose, now all your oil stocks have no value, right? So that's why I also, especially at Finder, we like to preach diversification. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. For every asset, there's a risk. If you're overloaded on Nvidia, if you're overloaded on tech stocks, if you're overloaded on oil stocks or energy stocks, there's always a catastrophe that could come and wipe you out. And so, I would just say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Might be my advice for folks who are just overweight on crypto right now. Yeah.
Yeah, because it does seem like everybody is just buying crypto. No one's really buying stocks in a sense, especially when Robinhood started creating their crypto accounts. So, what is some advice that you would give someone that's starting out in the marketing world, SEO world, or even just investments in general, but more specifically marketing and SEO? So, I just graduated. What's my next move, or what should I do?
I would say this is a beautiful time to get into marketing and SEO. Maybe don't call yourself an SEO. Maybe you call yourself something with growth in the title, so that you can sort of highlight that you're multi-platform. But experience is has never mattered less. Let's just say the game is changing. We're in the middle of an inflection point. So if you come into the game now, you won't have any of the bad habits or old school SEO that's simply not going to be working in the future. So if you are interested in getting into marketing, I would say there's no better time to get into it than right now. And it's never been easier to learn. I'm a big fan of YouTube University, right, where people just go in and there's someone who's created some sort of content on exactly what you need, and that's what I do whenever I need to get up to speed on AI or some of these tools that I'm starting to play with. I go to YouTube and I find folks who can teach me about it, and so yeah, I would say this is a really great time to get into marketing. It's a great time to learn about AI in general. It's a good time to get familiar with things like agentic tech and workflows and automation. Yeah, and the tools are at our disposal. In many ways, there are things that make you edit more efficient. So you can get into video creation. Like any discipline right now is a good time to get into that discipline because you don't necessarily need to specialize in it the way you would have in the past.
Yep, YouTube University is a real thing. I did not know how to even turn on a camera until I started going to YouTube University and starting this channel. So you're absolutely correct on that. And I think it makes sense for marketing to be a hot sector right now for people to enter because you do have all this AI help, right? Many years ago, you pretty much had to do everything from scratch. Maybe Google was your best friend, but now you have AI to pretty much help you with anything and everything, editing, video creation, writing a script. It's all there. So you're absolutely correct. Marketing and being in the digital presence right now is the best time. So what would you say is the pros and cons of AI? I know this was a topic that we didn't get much to earlier, but what are, like, just from your personal observations, what are some pros and some cons of AI?
I think the pros going to be the benefits we see in efficiency and the ability to learn new subjects quickly and the ability to dedicate more of our brain space to higher level work and getting rid of sort of all the boilerplate or grunt work. I think AI is going to do a good job at eliminating some of those needs, but I think the cons are that one of the big ones that people are talking about now is that it eliminates a little bit too much friction, right? You shouldn't be able to pass turn in that essay and it's just AI generated and get a good grade on it because you knew how to prompt a thing correctly. You should actually know what you're writing about. And I think friction is actually good in your life. I think anyone who's successful will tell you that friction was a necessary ingredient to becoming successful. They had to have that time to be frustrated, to bang their head up against a wall, to feel like, why isn't this working? And then to have that random thought in the shower, like 2 days later, that is the solution to their problem. You need those experiences to really be a master of your craft. So if people are using AI and automation to shy away from friction, I think that can be a con. I think we don't fully necessarily understand the energy components of this as well, and I think there's a lot that needs to be fleshed out there. I think regulation is also pretty important. I think deep fakes are scary, and misinformation is really scary, and AI definitely makes that a lot easier as well. I mean, I saw some robocalling story recently where folks were, someone in New Hampshire. I actually think his lawsuit got dropped, but he was robocalling folks during the Democratic election or during Democratic primary, and it sounded like Joe Biden telling people not to vote and to stay home. And so, it's a really scary. It can be used for scary ways, malicious ways. There's definitely bad actors out there, so we need to stay vigilant. But I do think the pros are of equal measure, or even outweigh the cons. But we do need to think about those cons, and we need to address them. As a people, as governments, as in any way we can. Like it's not a magic bullet that's going to save you from everything. there's some downsides to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a scary world with our future doctors and so on, our chat GPTs, submitting all their work for them. So they might need an app to, a really good one to track that.
Yeah.
So Zach, thank you for that answer. Very well said. Thank you for all the wisdom that you've been giving us. But on this channel, we usually have a small segment of just 3 questions that are out of the box. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if Finder was a person, what kind of personality would it have?
I think Finder would be that really energetic friend who knows way too much about credit card points and bonus deals, and you're kind of just like, all right, but we're at a party. I don't really want to talk about this right now. And Finder would be like, no, but you gotta hear about this new Chase card or whatever.
You're not going anywhere.
Right.
Okay, second question. What is the most random app that you've downloaded or you currently have? I know some people say they have, a yoga app or a meditation app or even a sunset app. Is there anything random that you currently have?
Beyond like the times where I fall for those sort of ads that you get on in social media for like those games where they show, that's another good marketing ad too, where they don't beat something that's easy to beat. I'm not sure if you've seen those, and you're like, well, now I need to download it so I can beat it. I have a bunch of those, but I recently downloaded it's the Electronic Travel Authority sort of Australian ETA app because I needed to get a visa because I'm going to Sydney in a couple weeks.
Nice. You'll have fun. Australia has always been on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Okay, and last question. If you were not in finance, marketing, SEO, what totally unrelated career would you have been in?
I think I would have gone into tech, like in a much deeper way, tech or law. But I always wanted to work in a discipline where you could impact the conversation and you could sort of, change the world, for lack of a better phrase.
Nice. Always making a difference in the world for positivity. And it makes sense because your mentors have done the same as well. Okay, so Zach, thank you so much. Now, before we conclude this interview, where do you see yourself or Finder in the next 3 to 5 years? Or if you have any last mentions or any significant events coming up?
I don't know. The world's moving so fast. I think only time will tell. But I know we have some exciting things in the works now that I guess folks will just have to stay tuned to figure out. Yeah, I would just say if you're someone who's intro to sort of finance and getting started investing and just got your first white collar job and want to sort of start building your wealth, I'd say check out Finder. We got some really good information for you, and our experts love talking to people, and so yeah.
I love that. I love that. I will have all of Finder's information in the description box. So please make sure you check it out. And Zach, you have given us some amazing wisdom this interview. It just felt like learning so much about the marketing, SEO. Of course, AI is revolutionizing everything. And I'm glad that you're an expert in it because we're not in that world. You are. So it's always good to hear from someone who knows what they're talking about. So my viewers, this is not the only time you're going to see Zach on this channel. We would love to continue seeing the journey he's on, whether it's with Finder or maybe with AI, SEO, marketing, and keeping us up to date. So audience, please make sure you like and subscribe. And as I said, I will have all of the details in the description box. Zach, thank you for being here with me today. And my viewers, until the next time, stay ranting.